Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nine Sports Podcast Hockey Edition. I'm your host, Maya Smith. I have just been obsessed with sled hockey, or sledge hockey, as we call it in Canada, with the Paralympics. I am so astounded by the ability of these players to just like whip the puck at the net with one hand. It's wild. And hopefully there will be more women in sled hockey soon. But I did want to shout out Akari Fukunishi, who's playing for Team Japan, and Michaela Hozakova, who's playing for Slovakia at the Paralympics right now in Milan. Sledge hockey at the Olympics is technically co-ed, but very few women have ever played at the Paralympics. So kudos to these ladies. It doesn't sound like they've gotten any ice time this tournament, which obviously needs to change, but they are still breaking barriers just by showing up. So kudos to them. On to standing hockey, I am joined this week by Natalia Rachman, the New York Sirens beat reporter here at the Ice Garden. She began covering the PWHL in February of 2025 and also talks about European leagues and international play. And I wanted to shout out this one part of your bio that I love. Enjoys supplementing her work with obscure statistics of varying uselessness whenever possible, which, I mean, who doesn't want that? So welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And I love your sweatshirt that you've got on there for people who aren't watching the PWHL sweater there. So I'm curious to know, before we start with our main content of the episode, how you got into covering the Sirens, because I'm pretty sure you live in Canada. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm Canadian. So how that happened, TIG was looking for beat writers for a few teams over the summer. And if you can believe it, out of the Torontonian covering New York now with an Ottawa jersey behind me, I didn't really have a preference. So the first piece I did was actually on Danielle Sariakti and Julia Gosling of Seattle. But at that time, Sylvia, who's the Seattle beat writer now, was also killing it with the Seattle coverage. So they were like, we want you, but we also want her too, and rightfully so. So take your pick of the rest of them, and here I am.
And honestly, I feel like, we love Sylvia. She does a great job, but I feel like you picked a great team because the Sirens are really exciting this year.
Yeah, that was after their draft over the summer. I was really sort of looking forward to see how they do, and I think they've definitely lived up to that this season so far.
Yeah, definitely. So they're actually part of our top headline of the week. So let's jump into the number one at the 9. So the number one at the 9 is our top headline of the week, and attendance has been increasing for the PWHL post-Olympics, which is awesome. New York and Toronto both set home attendance records this past week. New York had 8,264 fans, and Toronto had 8,671 fans. And the league also announced that the Sirens have sold out Madison Square Garden, which is crazy, on April 4th. And also the Fleet have sold out TD Place on April 16th. And both of those arenas will surpass the record that Seattle set for attendance just a few weeks ago. So records coming, amazing crowds. And Melissa Burgess wrote an article about this on the Nine Sports, and she said, to put the impact of the Madison Square Garden game into perspective, a crowd of 18,000 for a single game would represent 70.2% of the entire home game attendance this season for the Sirens combined. So that is just, those are fantastic numbers to see, both for New York, who I think often get kind of a bad rap around the league for their attendance, but then also for the Fleet and just the league as a whole. Can you talk a little bit about the New York attendance and kind of what you see as happening there?
Yeah, so the game over the weekend, it was actually the Sirens' second game back from the Olympic break at home, but it was their first on a weekend, and actually their first at Prudential Center on a weekend since December.
Yeah.
And the weekday game before that against Boston, it was comparable to that weekend game, and then the game last weekend just blew everything they've had previously out of the water. And I think their attendance issues previously were like sort of a mix of the arena instability of the first season, and then the sort of disconnect of being a New York team based in New Jersey and the necessary marketing that comes with that. But honestly, they were crushing the marketing for MSG when that first announced, and I think that the Olympics sort of put them over the top with that. And obviously, I wish that we had done without some things that happened along the way to get there. But I think they were taking steps in the right direction already, and then the boost from the Olympics was just sort of a well-timed reward for that.
Yeah, absolutely. For people who weren't following the sport in the first year, or the PWHL in its first year, the Sirens kind of like moved around a little bit. They didn't really have like a solid home arena where fans knew they would be every single week, which is kind of similar to what's happening in Boston too. I think it's interesting that these two teams that have sold out these giant arenas in their technically like named home cities is very interesting, because Boston also sometimes struggles with the attendance, and they play in Lowell, and also I don't know Boston geography very well, but also at Agganis Arena. So it's really interesting to see that when these teams are in their kind of like home city, they are selling more tickets. And I think as well, the Olympics has really helped. So super exciting. Have you heard anything from the Sirens players about their feelings about the attendance lately?
Yeah, it's definitely exciting for them. I know, like, I was just talking with Taylor Gerard and Kristen O'Neill about the Takeover Tour game coming up in Denver, and they were talking about like we've seen these records being repeatedly set, and they want to do it again in Denver, and obviously looking forward to April and MSG. They really want to do that, so it's definitely exciting for all involved.
Yeah, it's super exciting. And yeah, Denver might even break that record before they even get to MSG. And I think both the players and the fans in Denver would love to see a good attendance, since we know that the PWHL likes to put a lot of emphasis on those takeover tour games to see who gets a takeover tour, or a team, an expansion team. So that's awesome. And yeah, looking forward to the games in, I think Denver and Winnipeg are coming up next. Awesome. So we'll take a little step back from the PWHL. There wasn't a ton of action in the last week. I mean, the Boston Fleet continue to be the Boston Fleet, and I think they've won 6 in a row. They are playing tonight after we record this, though, so maybe Seattle will be able to hand them a loss. But I was at the game yesterday in Vancouver, and yeah, they just seem like really, really happy with how they're playing, which is super exciting. But also what's happening right now is the NCAA tournament has been announced. And I said this last week, I don't know that much about the NCAA. I find it difficult to follow as a Canadian, but you said that you do a good job following it. So we'll talk a little bit about like the basics, but I'm going to come to you for some more discussion on what we think will happen.
Yeah, I do my best from here, but I'd like to think I'm all right.
Well, you'll definitely know more than I do. So the way that this whole thing works is there are 5 different divisions that the NCAA encompasses, and these are like Div 1 hockey across the United States. So we had the championships for all 5 of the conferences or divisions, or I don't know. Do they have is it a specific word for it? Conferences? Okay, perfect. And so the champions, so Atlantic Hockey America, Penn State won that championship. Ohio State won the Western Collegiate Hockey Association championship. UConn won the Hockey East championship. Quinnipiac won the Eastern Collegiate Athletic Conference championship. And Franklin Pierce won the New England Women's Hockey Association championship. So I believe the way it works is that those 5 teams get an automatic bye into the championship tournament. And then they also bring in some other teams from the other divisions to kind of round out the bracket. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's an 11-team tournament total. So it's the 5 champions, and then the next 6 highest ranked. There's a formula called NPI that sort of determines that. So in this case, Penn Penn State, Ohio State, UConn, and Quinnipiac were already in the top 11. So they would have made it regardless. Franklin Pierce, no team in Newha is in that top 11. So there was always going to be the Newha bid. And then after that, it's the remaining down to 10th in NPI. So the remaining teams from there would be Northeastern, Yale, Minnesota Duluth, Princeton, and Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
I'm just like I didn't think to mention them in the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 range because they're Wisconsin. But they are the last team.
And they're part of the WCHA, which tends to be kind of the top ranked group of schools. Is that true?
Yeah, they're top heavy, not just in their own conference, in the entire country. Wisconsin is number 1 in NPI, Ohio State's number 2, so slight upset, but those teams are fairly evenly matched. Minnesota's been bouncing between 3 and 4. Minnesota Duluth started the year at 5, I want to say, and are now 9-10 area. So the top half of that league is incredibly strong.
Yeah, and those are for people who are kind of who don't follow those teams specifically, some of the players that you might recognize from the team. So Ohio State has Joy Dunn, Hilda Svensson, Mira Jungaker. They won in 2024, and they were runners-up last year. The Wisconsin team, who is stacked, they have Caroline Harvey, Lacey Eden, Layla Edwards, Kristen Sims, Ava McNaughton, and they won last year. So they're kind of the powerhouse, but I believe it was a very close game to determine the championship. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was a 2-1 game. Wisconsin actually scored first. All the goals were in the third period. And then the game winner was just a centering pass that went off a defender in front. It was incredibly fluky, and it almost seems fitting that it came down to that, but a little anticlimactic after their finals last year, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. So then once those teams come out of the championships, am I correct in saying that they do a bit of a reseed before they do the bracket? Because I think Ohio State is now the number 1 ranked team. Is that right?
Yeah, they do reseed. UConn actually did beat Northeastern in the Hockey East final, but Northeastern has the 5th seed, whereas UConn is 6th. But that does get Northeastern immediately playing Minnesota, though they have one less round to go through. So
yeah,
you can sort of weigh your options there with.
Yeah, absolutely. And is it kind of magic how they obviously the people who are doing the reseeding have an understanding of how it works, but to the public, is it clear why one team would get that seed over another, or is it kind of just a surprise when you get to the day?
Yeah, NPI is a fairly public thing. It goes into what when you see the score bugs, there's always a number beside the teams, so that stuff is always fairly readily available. So Northeastern, sort of similar to the Ohio State Wisconsin matchup, Northeastern's been a little bit ahead of UConn for the entire season, and their championship game went to double overtime. So I don't think that really shifted the rankings much, which is why Northeastern's ahead.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So then the teams in the bracket, they head to regional tournaments, which start tomorrow, or when you're listening to this on Thursday, so today. And they are in Columbus, Madison, University Park, which is, I believe, where the Frozen Four is going to be held, and also Minneapolis. And then the winners of those regional tournaments go to the Frozen Four, which Giselle and Emma, who cover a lot of the NCAA for us, are going to be joining me next week to kind of break things down before the Frozen Four. But that's kind of how the tournament progresses to then get to. And the Frozen Four is the top 4 theoretically best teams in the NCAA. Yeah. So then do you have any thoughts about which teams we'll probably see in the Frozen Four. Like, obviously, we have the ones that are there a lot, like Wisconsin, Ohio State. But do you think we'll see those teams again, or do you think there might be some upsets that we aren't really expecting?
Yeah, I'm fairly confident in Wisconsin, Ohio State to get back to the Frozen Four. I think the other two spots are definitely pretty interesting in terms of the matchup. Penn State is currently the third ranked team, but they're really hard to gauge over the course of the regular season because there's only one other top 15 ranked team in Atlantic Hockey America. So their strength of schedule is always fairly lower.
Right.
And their matchup upcoming is the winner of UConn and Princeton, who are both stronger than any other team in their conference. So sort of seeing whether they'll rise to that level of play and like sort of prove they belong at the three is definitely one of the more like up in the air things of the tournament. And then on the other side, Minnesota Northeastern should be a really good game as well. Minnesota, I feel like is going to come back angry. They got shut out of the WCHA semifinals, so I think they're going to have a fire under them. So if I had to, I can save that for the
the end when we do our predictions.
Yeah, I can save that for the top shelf prediction.
Okay, gotcha. And yeah, I think so Pittsburgh, or no, not Pittsburgh. Penn State. So this is their fourth consecutive AHA title. So like you said, they are very strong in their division, but it will be very interesting to see how they kind of line up against those teams. Especially what was interesting to me is kind of looking at the rosters and seeing those kind of main schools where the U.S. Olympic team kind of draws their players from versus the other schools that are still like at a very highly competitive level and probably also have some very talented players that we just don't necessarily see on that international stage.
Yeah, and like the notable name there is Tess Janicki, who had the golden goal at the World Championships last season. She's sort of been carrying that team for a while, but their stats have sort of like, I guess, evened out a little bit where like she's not as far ahead of everyone. Like she's got a good bit of firepower there. Grace Outwater, I know, has had a really good season, and they got a couple Olympians, Matilda Fenton and Nicole Hall of Italy and Sweden. So they've got depth that I don't think they've had in previous years.
Cool. So they could be in for an upset. And then interestingly to me, and you mentioned this, that the New England division, they don't have any teams that are like ranked in that top 11 other than Franklin Pierce, who made it through their tournament. Is that division like, does that division tend to be kind of like less competitive than the other four?
Yeah, it's usually the champion gets into the NCAA tournament and they're one and done. But anything can happen.
Yeah, very true. It kind of reminds me, and like not to bring men into this, but like it kind of reminds me of the Memorial Cup that we have in Canada, where they bring like the winner of the QMJHL, the WHL, and the OHL all together, and then you kind of get to see, even if they're like the best team of their league, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best junior hockey team in the country. So it's always very exciting to see like how that all plays out.
Yeah, so Franklin Pierce's path to the Frozen Four goes through Quinnipiac and then Wisconsin. And the sort of sample we have of Wisconsin playing Nuha teams is them beating Stonehill 17-2 in a showcase earlier this year. So I'm not holding my breath for that one.
No, we really need the Etsy witch to be like cursing Wisconsin, or they're not really gonna have a chance.
Yeah.
That's
not even saying anything about Quinnipiac, who they won the ECAC, which is
exactly
consistently been the second strongest conference behind the WCHA. I think Hockey East is sort of competing with them on the higher end there with UConn and Northeastern, but Quinnipiac's no slouch at all.
And they send lots of players to the PWHL as well. So that's awesome.
Yeah, first round pick Kendall Cooper as a Quinnipiac grad.
Yeah. I think also Maddie Samaskevich, who plays for the Golden Eyes, played there as well, I think. So, yeah. So it's also very interesting if you want to see kind of the next group of PWHL stars. They're probably playing in this tournament. So definitely check it out if you are able to have access to it. They'll also be announcing the Patty Kazmaier Award winner, I believe, at the Frozen Four. We're going to talk about that more next week, but did you have any thoughts? They put out the 3 finalists, which I believe was Joy Dunn, Abby Murphy, and then someone else. Oh, Caroline Harvey. Is that right?
Tessa Janicki, not Joy Dunn.
Okay. Tessa Janicki, yes. Do you have any thoughts about what could happen with that award? I mean, Caroline Harvey is probably the likeliest choice, but...
Yeah, that would be my choice as well. 2 points a game as a defender is ridiculous.
Yeah, I
know like there's like a sportsmanship aspect of the award too, and Janicki and Murphy are both pushing 60 penalty minutes on the season, so she has that going for her too.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking about that in the Ice Garden Slack as well, about, how true to the kind of description of the award the league will stay versus, I mean, Abby Murphy is a huge name right now as well, but she definitely is, I think, missing a little bit of that sportsman-like quality. So that'll be super interesting. I mean, I've been seeing all these memes on Twitter and on Instagram about like which PWHL team will be lucky enough to get Caroline Harvey next year. So she's definitely going to make an impact, whether she gets that award or not. You get to watch Casey O'Brien on a regular basis, and she was the Patty Kazmaier winner last year. So some amazing talent that takes that award.
Yeah, for sure. Harvey was a finalist for that last year too, and Layla Edwards was as well. Mm-hmm. So a lot of names from that U.S. Olympic team.
Yeah, and also from Wisconsin. So to circle back there, awesome. Okay, well, we'll hear what Emma and Giselle think about that next week as well, and then the following week we'll talk about the announcement. But let's jump into the other league that I think has gotten I mean, I don't have the data on this, so I don't know, but I think has gotten a little bit more attention post-Olympics, which is the SDHL. I don't know a ton about the SDHL, so we're really just having the Maya Knows Nothing episode here, but you do. And recently you wrote in the Hockey Insider newsletter that the Ice Garden does for the 9 Sports about the playoffs so far. Can you give us some insight kind of into where things stand now and the matchups that we're seeing?
Yeah, so when I wrote that, we were 2 games into the first round, and since then, the first round's ended. Top 4 teams moved on, no upsets, but we were very close to one. 8 seed Färjestad took the reigning champion and number 1 seed Frölunda to a game 5.
Wow.
And we're outplaying them for a pretty significant portion of it. But Andrea Brandley got a shutout in that game, as she is wont to do in important games, as we've seen from the Olympics.
Absolutely.
So they've moved on to play SDE, who is the 4 seed, and then the other matchup is Luleå and Brynäs.
Awesome. And I mean, I don't know if you're going to talk about this later, so if you are, we'll just wait till top shelf predictions. But who do you see moving on to the championship?
Well, as of date of recording, the first games of those series happened today. Frölunda won game 1 4-1, off on the back of an Elisa Holopainen hat trick. And Brynäs held on for dear life against Luleå. They won 3-2. Luleå nearly erased a 3-0 deficit and hit a post with 5 seconds left.
Oh my gosh, that would have been so exciting.
Yeah. Playoff hockey. So they're currently up in their series, and even before those games, those 2 would have been who I had going through. Luleå, they don't have Jenny Hirakoski. She got hurt at the Olympics, so she's been a pretty big loss for them. And Klara Paslarova, who was with the Boston Fleet last year, has stepped up her game a ton in the playoffs, especially. She was in sort of a tandem with Anna Nystrom, who is Norway's national team starting goaltender. And Nystrom was actually fairly outplaying her for a lot of the season, but she got hurt near the end of it. And Peslova's stepped up in a big way throughout their playoff series. So she's sort of taken the reins there.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I feel like a lot of players who are from Europe went back to play in the SDHL from the PWHL this year, goaltending wise specifically, because they wanted to be able to show that they deserved a spot on their national teams when they weren't really getting a lot of playing time in the PWHL. So it's great to see that Peslarova is having a good season there, and she also was at the Olympics too. Are there other?
The other sort of example I was thinking on the goaltending front was Emma Soderberg, also formerly of the Boston Fleet, who is now in SD, who is still in contention. And looking at the goaltending, Sweden got the Olympics. And also looking at the fact that there are 2 Swedish goalies at the NCAA tournament, Felicia Frank and Lisa Jansson, neither of whom were on the Sweden Olympic team. They've got a lot of competition there, so it really does make sense from Soderberg's perspective to try to get as many games in as she can. And
yeah, absolutely. And
she did crack that roster. She got a shutout at the Olympics. So yeah,
and their goaltending was
worked
great.
out well for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there other players that fans might have noticed at the Olympics that they can still watch right now?
Yeah, I'll try not to go on too long about this because this is this is where I tend to ramble. But I'll go in order of seeding. So for Linda, first of all, they've got a good mix of Olympians from a bunch of different places. There's Brandley, who we mentioned earlier, from Switzerland. There is Holopainen and Emilia Vesa from Finland. Emily Nix from Germany. And then, of course, Sophie Lundin, Hannah Olsen, and Felicia Wickner-Zinkiewicz from Sweden. Luleå, they've got a few Olympians of their own. Petra Nieminen of Finland, and the D pair of Nadia Mativi and Franziska Stalker from Italy. Stalker was just signed recently as an injury replacement for Hirokoski. And they also have former PWHL players, Akane Shiga, formerly of Ottawa, Joanna Fellman, formerly of PWHL New York, season 1, and Cameron Sikic, who was at Minnesota Frost camp and signed with Luleå after she was cut. Brynäs has a decent portion of Finland's offense, actually. Vivi Vainikka, Nora Toulouse, and Janina Nyland, the last of whom scored the bronze medal winning goal at the World Championships last season. They have Peslarova, as previously mentioned, and also Sarah Chayanova of Czechia, who's recently named Defender of the Year in the SDHL as well.
Oh, awesome.
And they also have Hanna Tuvik of Sweden. And then SD is the team of former PWHLers. Gabrielle David and Sam Kogan are their leading scorers, and their goalie tandem is Soderberg and Kasti Sove, who was with the Sceptres for the playoff run last season. And as for Olympians, their second line consists of Czechia's Teresa Pistekova and Sweden's Lisa Johansson, and I believe their third is another former PWHL player, and Annika Rankala.
Awesome. So there's so many names that people recognize either from the Olympics or from the PWHL. I feel like between the NCAA tournament and the SDHL tournament, you're getting your whole fill of Olympians this week and into next week. So I think I also read in your newsletter that it's on YouTube now, it's broadcast on YouTube. Is that true?
Yes, they've been on YouTube since the start of the season. I believe it should come up when you search SDHL, but the link is youtube.com/@SDHLSE.
Amazing. So so fans can watch sometimes in Canada even easier than they can watch the PWHL if they're interested. Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah, I feel like I've been wanting to get into that league for a long time. I just I don't know. I need it laid out for me. And so this is a really great recap of how people can get into it. And they should definitely tune in for the playoffs because it's the most exciting time of year.
Yeah, for sure. It being on YouTube was sort of how I got more into it this season and ended up getting really into it, as you can kind of see. Really. So yeah, I obviously definitely recommend it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that accessibility. So we usually finish up with our top shelf predictions. I say our, but I don't participate. Your top shelf prediction. So last week, Melissa predicted that the Sceptres would be in a playoff spot by this recording. And they're only 2 points back. So on Sunday, they do play and they could find themselves in a playoff spot if they get a win on Sunday. So that's really exciting. We talked about them last week about how they've just kind of like turned a new leaf since the Olympics. So if you haven't listened to that episode, definitely go check it out. But Natalia, what is your top shelf prediction for the week?
All right. I think we are going to see a Hockey East team in the Frozen Four for the first time since 2023.
Ooh, that's super exciting. Can you remind everybody who the teams are that could be in the Frozen Four?
Yeah. So that would be UConn, who has to go through Princeton and Penn State to get there, and Northeastern, who has to go through Minnesota.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be super cool. And that would be, really great for those players, of course, and that division to play at the Frozen Four, because that's like the big end goal, I feel like, for all of those players. Yeah. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. We will see if that prediction comes true on the next episode. If it doesn't, you would be in good company, because I honestly don't think any of these have ever come true. But, the league is unpredictable for sure. Where can people find you when you're not on this podcast?
Yeah. So I actually, I don't have Twitter. One of the better mental health decisions I've made. I do have a Blue Sky at Natalia Rak. I occasionally post about hockey on it, but other than that, I am just here at the 9 in the Ice Garden as always.
Awesome. Yeah, I will leave some of your stories linked down below so people can follow, and your Blue Sky as well. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you everybody for listening. If you haven't already checked out the new 9 Sports site, definitely go and do that. It's looking very nice, and we have our own little hockey section that Michelle designed, and it looks great. So definitely go and check that out. And if you are able to, subscribe to get access to all of the great work that we do for hockey, but that the 9 does for basketball, soccer, tennis, gymnastics, women's sports, you name it. So, and definitely hit subscribe or follow on this podcast so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you next week.